President Trump is expected to defend his economic policies tonight. He'll be appealing to Congress, which introduced a bipartisan effort last week to limit his power to impose tariffs. Lawmakers cited national security concerns as the White House continues to wage trade wars. Perhaps the biggest focus is on the U.S. relationship with China. Mr. Trump had this to say last week about a potential end to the escalating tensions.
When President Xi and I meet, we want to have it down so that we have certain points that we can discuss, and I would say agree to, but we're not quite at that stage yet. We want to make it comprehensive. We want to make a deal that we can look at and be proud of for many years, not where we have to go back and renegotiate or we left things out.
Let's bring in Lawson. He's a senior reporter for Law 360, where he focuses on international trade. Thanks so much for joining us. The Trump administration has self-imposed a March 1st deadline to reach a trade deal with China. How likely is it an agreement can be reached by then?
Extremely unlikely. The Trump administration is negotiating with China on issues like China's intellectual property rules, rules that require U.S. companies to hand over sensitive technology as a condition of doing business there, agriculture barriers, goods and services barriers. These are things that administrations of both parties have been trying to solve for years, decades, some would even tell you. And the idea that a deal of that nature could come together within 90 days was never really realistic. Now, the White House has been trying to put a good face on this effort, and they're saying that they're moving in the right direction. But the idea of a profound breakthrough with China on these trade issues is pretty unlikely by March 1st.
Well, do we know if the president has any non-negotiables that might hinder the timeline?
Well, I mean, the U.S. is the one who is doing all of the negotiating right now. They're the ones who are demanding all these changes to China's rules. The Chinese don't seem to be asking very much at the negotiating table. And the United States has also said, I mean, they're just not going to do a half measure here. They're not going to consider some commitments to make changes later an actual agreement. They want these rules that they don't like removed, and they want them removed very quickly. But as I'm saying, very much easier said than done.
Well, back in 2017, you wrote that the president, quote, should play the long game in the China trade talks. What did you mean by that, and do you still feel that way?
Well, that wasn't, for the record, that wasn't me editorializing. That was sort of what a lot of the sort of policy wonk hive mind was saying at the time. And the idea was, you're much more likely to extract concessions from China just by doing so in a diplomatic sense. Having summits, talking about things that are bothering you, and sort of making piecemeal progress where you can. Instead, the president has decided to take a very aggressive tack. He spent much of the last year imposing tariffs on China. We're up to about $250 billion worth of goods that's covered by tariffs. And only now are they actually returning to the negotiating table to take that longer steps kind of approach. And the thing is that what has come this past year, all these tariffs that preceded this effort to talk, is very much hindering that negotiating effort right now, because it's very difficult to negotiate with somebody who has sort of imposed waves of tariffs upon you and is threatening more as sort of a sword of Damocles hanging over the entire thing. It makes it very difficult to negotiate that way.
Well, what political blowback has this administration received from the president's stance on trade?
Well, it's been certainly bipartisan. That much I can tell you. There's not much that Republicans and Democrats agree on these days, but Trump's trade policies have drawn a lot of blowback. Republicans, of course, are the party of free trade, and they are not happy with the way that these tariffs are beginning to manifest on price chains. It is always American consumers who pay the brunt of tariffs when they are put into effect. And Democrats are also playing a sort of local political game as well. They're looking out for, the American consumer who's like beginning to face steady price increases and things like that. So the blowback has been steady, and it's beginning to get a little louder, as you indicated. There are some legislative proposals that have begun to bubble up looking to check Trump on this trade authority.
Well, the trade wars have impacted American farmers. In July, the president announced an aid relief package for them. Let's listen to some of what he said then.
And our farmers are patriots. Remember that. Our farmers are patriots. And they're saying the president is doing the right thing. They say, I know it's going to be a little tough for a while, but he's doing the right thing, because everybody knows we've been ripped off for so long. and he's doing the right thing. These are incredible people, and you know we've given them a little help yesterday. We're giving them help.
So has the administration done enough to relieve the burden for farmers, and what could be done today to help them out more?
I think most of the sort of farming base would tell you he hasn't done enough. The aid package that he was referencing there is about $12 billion for sort of tariff relief. And that, like many government direct payment programs, has run into some procedural snags, a lot of red tape. Various corners of the farming constituency were saying they weren't receiving these payments on time or weren't receiving them at all. Then, of course, the government shut down for a month, as you may have heard about, and that kind of slammed the brakes on a whole other wave of things that were going on at USDA to try to get these payments out on time. In terms of what could happen today, this has been a pretty universal response from the farming community, which is, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but it's basically, giving us money to support the blowback from these tariffs you've imposed is a nice sentiment, but it would be a lot better if we were just able to lift these tariffs, try our best to open the Chinese market, keep our market open again, and everything can sort of keep flowing the way it was.
All right, Alex Lawson for us. Alex, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.